Hi, in this lecture we'll talk about the pen tool for selection purposes. It's a powerful and versatile option for any project, but some people consider it scary and overwhelming. Let me shed some light on it, and after a couple of videos you'll be flying with it. Let's get to it. Grab the pen tool through its hotkey P. The most important setting is this one here in the top left. Use this drop-down and you want to set it to Path. That's how we can create selections and not shapes. We'll discuss its other function in the Shapes section of this course. Okay, by default, here's how the pen tool works. You click once to create an anchor point. It's this black dot here. You click again, and now these are connected. If you click and drag, you'll get a curve, which is much more useful in your day-to-day work. Depending on how much you continue to drag, you'll adjust its roundness. If you click yet again, but in an opposite direction and without holding down your mouse, you'll get this curve because the pen tool wants to continue this particular flow. If you're not happy with it, you can press Ctrl-Z and that will remove it. If you want a sharp line that goes in the opposite direction, so without any curvature whatsoever, hold down Alt and hover over this last anchor point. You can see your cursor has changed. Click and you've just used the Convert Point tool by way of your modifier key, Alt. Now click in that region and you'll notice you get a perfectly straight line. If you don't want to use your hotkeys, which I highly discourage, you can click and hold on the pen tool's icon, and for the last one from this flyout menu, it's Convert Point tool. Let me quickly place some more points on the canvas. Remember, I'm just clicking and holding my mouse click, nothing special. Now with this tool selected, any anchor point I click on will change, and it's going to give me straight, sharp lines. Great stuff. Let me delete everything and I'll click several times on my canvas yet again. As I said in the beginning, we're using the pen tool in path mode, and this is useful for selection purposes. We'll get to that part in a second, but if you want to manage your paths, you have a special panel for it. I have it docked here, but if you don't see it, go to Window, Paths. As you click across your canvas, you can see this thumbnail changes. It's very tiny, but this is a representation of what's going on. We saw how you can save a selection. Well, this panel is great because you can save your path. Here's what can happen. You spend a lot of time on a complicated path, then you go grab a drink, and someone uses your computer because he wants to add a moustache to a dog. That always happens, I know. Anyway, this person is going to hit Enter and click several times to create a new path. Guess what's going to happen with your work? Exactly as in the case of selections, it's going to disappear. That means that if you hit Enter and then you click on this work path, you're going to get the latest one. To prevent losing your work, you can save your path by double-clicking in this region. Input any name, and now this is going to be saved inside your PSD. Going back to the selection aspect, after you've set your path, it's essential you go back to the initial anchor point. This was my first one, so if I hover over it, you can see I'm getting a circle next to my cursor. That means I'm about to close this path. Click, and now we can create our selection. In my book, there are two main choices to create a selection from a path. You either click on this third icon at the bottom of the Paths panel. That's one option. Let me undo. And my preferred method is to right-click, and from this list I'll press Make Selection. A new window is going to pop up asking me if I want to feather it. That's not the case. I'll always keep anti-aliasing checked because this prevents jagged edges. Hit OK and we're good to go. We now have a selection. With it, we can switch to the Layers panel and do all sorts of things, but that's not the purpose of this lecture. Let's switch panels and I'll create a new path so that I can show you a few other things. Notice how Work Path just popped up in this panel. That shows you the current active one. Okay, in the options bar by default, we have this feature called Auto Add Delete enabled, and I suggest you keep it like that. This means the following. When you hover over a selected path, you can add as many anchor points as you want on it. As you can see, my cursor changes, it gets a plus symbol. That means I'm about to add a new anchor point, and that's because this option is enabled. Click, and there you go. I can also click and drag, and this is what's going to give me what is called a Bezier curve. On the other hand, if you hover over an existing point, you'll get this minus symbol, which means you can remove it. Note that your path will remain closed, as this doesn't remove that segment. Instead, it just removes that point. Okay, so a quick recap. The pen tool for selection purposes should be set on Path from the options bar. Click to create straight lines, click and hold to create Bezier curves. Once you're done, save your work through the Paths channel by double-clicking in this area. This isn't mandatory, but if you want to have it next time you open this project, you'll have to do it. Finally, once you've closed off your path by going back to your origin point, right-click and choose Create Selection. And that's our first lecture on the pen tool. Stay tuned for more information, and pretty soon we'll jump into our first hands-on activity.